best picture and the best tweet will win a Surface Pro. Okay? So the only thing that you have to do is be creative and put that hashtag CNN MVP days, and then the committing selection with will choose what is the best picture or tweet, and then you can win. You must be present at the end of the day to just receive the gift. So we have already here. Other than that, we have the evaluation. It should be BC. Let me put this right. I don't know why. Oh, I know what's happened. I hope. Okay. So you have the URL over there to just do the evaluation. And at the end of the day, we are giving away as well a Windows 8 and Office 365. So the session of today, of now, it's migrating to Hyper-V. So using Microsoft Virtual Machine Converter tool. Are you familiar with this tool? Do you know what I'm talking about? So this tool belongs to, it's a free tool, so 100% free, and doesn't have anything else behind it. It's a really cool tool. It's become from Microsoft Solution Accelerators. That is a division of Microsoft that produce lots of great tools, all free. And it's the best tool so far that I did found to just migrate from VMware to Hyper-V. Okay? There are other great tools that they give you probably best capacity, we will see, or best capabilities. But in this case, what I'm focusing in is this one. Okay? So the agenda for today is the Hyper-V Grow. So a couple of slides just to see how the Hyper-V is going and why it's important to have this kind of knowledge and experience. The migration options. Then I'm talking about, of the migration options, I'm talking about two of my favorite ones. One is the Microsoft Virtual Machine Converter. That is one-in-one. So basically, you are migrating VM per VM, okay? And it's a GUID-based. And the other one is NetApp. Just use that same tool and use the MAT, that is the automation toolkit, basically to just kind of automate the whole process of moving VMs from VMware to Hyper-V. Because if you have like 1,000 VM, you don't want to run the GUID, the virtual machine converter, every single time. You want to automate. And that, if you're using NetApp, they will give this already included on the price of NetApp, so it's free. If you have a NetApp, you can use it. Otherwise than that, you can use the Microsoft Automation Kit. So Hyper-V Grow. My experience, so I'm working Hyper-V since 2008, so since the version 1. Basically, since the virtual server. Do you remember virtual server 2005? So do you have experience with that? It was not the best solution at that time for virtualizing, especially on the production environment, but it was the starting point in my perspective from what is really what we have right now as an Hyper-V, okay? So Hyper-V, in this case, Microsoft and VMware are the leaders of this quadrant, following the Gartner. This is a 2013 the Magic Quadrant. And you can see over there that Microsoft is one of the leaders right now. So if we compare apples to apples, what we're having right now on VMware regarding Hyper-V today, at this present day, you will see that there is no much difference. Basically, it's everything you can do with VMware, you can do it with Hyper-V. The only big difference that they have between them is the cost of the license. So that is one of the reasons that the growth of Hyper-V it's going up regarding the VMware. Okay? And I'm seeing this on the clients that I'm visiting, on the customers that I'm visiting. And every time I'm seeing more and more usage of Hyper-V. It did start with with development environments because it was free at that time. VMware already have the free version of VMware, but the capabilities of both, if we compare, are drastically ginormous difference. So the Hyper-V that you have for free is exactly the same one that you have on the full version of Windows. Regarding the XSI, it's not the same thing. Okay? You don't have the same version, you don't have the same capabilities on that version of VMware than the vSphere, for example. Okay? And that's why you're seeing the growth. So VMware has always been one of the top leaders regarding virtualization, but the growth that you're seeing, and you're seeing for the first time regarding 2012 and 2013, a decrease of the usage of the market share. Okay, so Hyper-V it's really on the market and it's growing and growing even more. Just without, it's enough with marketing slides. So let's talk about the really options that we have. So this is the 6 options that we already have in the market. Probably if there are more, I'm probably not aware of that. But this is the migration options that you already have. And they are, in my case, I already work with every single one of them, and they are pretty good. There are a couple of differences, okay? I will not go with every single one of them, but basically, what I want to call out is the virtual machine converter is the only one that is 100% free download. Okay? So you have another one that is the 5.9, for example. It's free, but then you have the full edition. Okay? The rest of them, if you buy the product, sometimes in CasaNet app, you have the tool as well. Okay? So one of the things that I really like on this virtual machine converter is if I have any problem with that, I still have full Microsoft support. It's a free tool, okay? But if I have any issue, I can pick up the phone and call Microsoft to give me support. And this is really cool, okay? Even for a free tool. The other thing that I really like is they can use for Hyper-V and Azure. So basically, what I can do is I have my virtual machines on VMware, and I can decide to import them or to migrate them to Hyper-V or to Azure. It's up to me to do it. And it's very simple. It's only the selection of a checkbox that you want to select that. Okay? So virtual machine converter. Anyone already work with this tool? Show hands. Okay? So what do you think regarding that? It's pretty simple, correct? So the installation, you just go to the solution accelerator and install it. Okay? You don't have to install on Hyper-V server, but I really recommend to install on Hyper-V server because the reason why is if you want to migrate that to Azure, if you're doing that, you can use all the power of the Hyper-V that you can have it and doing whatever you want to do it and then export directly to Azure, okay? So benefits of that is minimal dependence. It's really great. Native support with PowerShell. Everything now is by PowerShell. And this is the key component for you to just, if you want to automate, this is a key component for you to automate. It's very simple. So it's a GUID. So it's the next finish that Microsoft always give to us since the beginning. It's really simple to download. again, is fully supported by Microsoft, and it goes from the latest guest OS along the logs conversions. And the good thing is, you can even use this for different scenarios. So if you have one of those versions of VMware hosts since 4.1 up to now, you can use this tool. So it's the range of the VMware is pretty good. Okay, so you have 3 or 4 versions that you can use this since 4.1, and the output of this you can migrate to the Microsoft hosts, in this case to the Hyper-V, since 2008 R2. So you don't need to have a box of 2012 R2 to use it, okay? And when you select the use, or when you select the endpoint, the Hyper-V, of course that there are capabilities different regarding the VHD, for example, okay? So 2008 R2 doesn't support VHDX. So the only options for you is to convert the VMDK into VHD. And the tool does it for you very simple. The other way, it's Microsoft Azure. So right now, Microsoft Azure only supports VHD. Okay? So it doesn't matter if you are importing to VHD in Hyper-V 2012 R2, then if you really want to import that or migrate that VM to the cloud, to the Microsoft Azure, you need to use VHD. Is the only support. Okay. Regarding the guest operating system, so VMs with the VM tools 4, 7, 8, 9, and 10, okay, are supported by this tool. So even if you have VMware, the version 4 with these VMware tools, it's truly supported. And the good thing is, regarding the support OS that you are running inside of the VM, you can have a much broader excuse me, selection. Okay? So just remind you one thing. Even Linux is supported as a VM guest, but if you are, is always a but, if you are moving to Microsoft Azure, there are a few things that are not supported. Okay? And then I'm calling out over there. So you have then when you can download the slides, you can see what is supported or not. Okay? And in some cases, there are some additional steps that you need to do, depending on the version of the client OS that you need to do. So regarding the support configuration, this is what is being supporting regarding VMware. Okay? So you have the host and the file. All these type of virtual disks are supported. Monolithic flat, for example, streaming optimized, 2 gigamax extent. So all of those disks are supported into the VMware world when you want to migrate them to the Microsoft side. Okay? Additional requirements. So when you're talking about additional requirements, it's always important, and this is the key points that I'm feeling the pain in the field. So on the destination Hyper-V, usually when you're having this, you sometimes made a mistake to just give the local admin of the server. You don't need to. Okay? So if you want to migrate this to production, and you have an external team to do it, you don't need to give them like local admin of your Hyper-V server. Okay? The only thing you need to do is the account must be right access to the path of the Hyper-V host. And usually what I'm doing the most, kind of what I always request at the top of my permissions is Hyper-V administrators. Okay? There is a difference between being an Hyper-V administrator and a local admin. So I never request a local admin. I don't need a local admin to just migrate those VMs. The max that I need, if you want to really do something on Hyper-V, is Hyper-V administrators. On the Windows guests, another requirement, and this is a question that I got a lot, is what about space? So I'm migrating from one VM, from one server to another. I need to have space to convert the VMDK into a VHD or VHDX. What about space? You need to calculate that. So if you are doing a bulk migration using automation or a PowerShell, you need to take that in consider. Okay? You will see this in a few slides ahead. So Windows guests. For Windows guests, the online conversion is very simple, but do not forget to disable the firewall, for example, or even enable the RDP when it's possible, the RDP on the server, on the virtual machine. And the VMware tools must be ensure that the VMware tools are installed, because one of the things that the converter does is uninstall the VMware tools and will install the integration service on Hyper-V. It's exactly the same thing, but on the VMware world calls VMware tools, on the Microsoft world calls integration services. Okay? So the process of migrating from from VMware to Hyper-V or Azure, during this process, it will take care in the lots of VM guesses. We'll take care about that process. Okay? The other thing is the VM should be domain joined, because the permission that you have inside of the VM, it's really important. Then you need local admin on those permissions. Okay? On those VMs, you need a user that have a local admin, because you are installing. Remember this, you are install the VMware tools, and you need to install the integration services. So other than that, it's really difficult even to change something inside the tool, and it's only for a certain period of time. So my good recommendation is, while we are migrating, you just create a tool or just create a user only for that purpose and then disable. So one of the things that I always do after the migration is run a script to just take out that user that I didn't use from the local administrators. That's it. You can automate that process as well on PowerShell. So when you're starting, before you're starting, you just add that user to the local admins, and then you just, after this, the last step is taking out that user from local admins. It's one of my recommendations when I'm doing this. So the account be used for the conversion part must be a domain account and local admins rights on the VMs. On the destination Hyper-V host, again? Oh, okay. For the Linux, VMware tools must be installed as well. On this case, SH are required to remove the VMware tools. So this is another thing. Ensure that the port 22 it's open when you want to connect with SSH, because the converter will communicate through that port with the Linux virtual machine to just remove the VMware tools. Okay? And then again, it will use the same thing, just install the integration services. Okay? The root credentials are required, exactly the same thing. Okay? So the SU and the SUDO are not currently supported in this case. There are a lot of documentation that I have on my notes when I make available the slides that you can see and you can download for this regarding Linux and the other links that I have supported. So for VMware to Azure, the requirements that you need is a little bit more tricky. It's not that simple than migrating from VMware to Hyper-V. And the reason why is the server that you have, the virtual machine converter, you need to set up a trust with Azure. So you need to manage the certificates. It doesn't need to be a super powerful server, but the machine that you install in the virtual machine converter needs to be trustable, let's say, to Azure. So you need to add the certificates. You need to add the accounts. Beside that, of course, that you are storing, remember this, you are storing the virtual machine on Azure, your storage account must be there to just convert and to just use it, their storage. So you need on the other side, on the let's say, pre-environment, you need to set up that account, you need to set up all the storage and everything else. Other than that, you will probably fail the process when it will fail on the last bit when you are importing the VM to Azure, for example, okay? So the other good thing is you need to install PowerShell 3.0 on the machine that if you are not using Hyper-V 2012 R2, for example, okay? So how is the process? So the process is very simple. It's based on 5 steps. So you have your VMware vCenter. Then you have your Linux machine and Windows machine, virtual machine. You have, for example, the Hyper-V. This is the exact process that I'm using. I always have an Hyper-V, even if it's a laptop. I can use one of these laptops that we just deployed in a session, 2 sessions ago, or last session that we deployed the bare metal deployment. 32 gig is more than enough for that. And SSD drives I really recommend. And you have Hyper-V. You're installing the the virtual machine converter. Takes about 30 seconds to install. Just download. 30 seconds to install. It's really simple. And then you have to set up 2 things. One is the VM location and the temporary location when you just put those servers, okay? So why is this important? If you are migrating for VMware to Hyper-V, you need the final location of the virtual machines, okay? And that can be on the storage, can be on the cluster, it doesn't matter. Sometimes I had some clients that they really want to migrate these directly to the cluster because they are migrating the live environment and they want to have the less downtime possible. There will be a downtime, okay? So you need to schedule a maintenance window. But on this case, you need to just migrate directly with the lowest downtime possible. So what you do is basically create that and you can send directly to the cluster. In my opinion, I prefer take a little bit more time to just incorporate that on the physical box, on a standalone box, see everything is okay with the virtual machine, because I can use that maintenance window to just tweak a little bit more. Issues that I had, for example, in VMware, I can try to tweak it even more, and then, because it's already been on Hyper-V, I can live migrate them. I have no problem with that. So you don't need this. Is exactly the same downtime time, but the process is a little bit longer because you are migrating from VMware to a standalone Hyper-V, and then the standalone Hyper-V you are migrating to the cluster. But that migration, it's live, okay? And the temp location, it's always good for that. So then if you want to have the Azure, you have to set up the Azure on this. So the first thing that you do is connect the machine converter to the VMware world. Second, all the checkpoints that you have on that virtual machine, what the converter does, it will contact VMware and say, hey, just converge them into the same disk, even if you have that. And that sometimes it's a difference of the process being too long to migrate the virtual machine or too fast. Okay? So that is the experience that I have regarding sometimes, because I know that we're supposed not to have checkpoints on production, but sometimes we just do and forget them, and then it's a really pain to just manage them. So on the second point, it will uninstall the VMware tools. The third one is starting to copy and convert the VMDK into VHD or VHDX, depending on the destination hosts. Okay? So this process is the second one that takes time. And this one, it really depends on your network. So it's really keen if you have the possibility of having 10 gig, you will see a lot of improvement on this. Or at least a most dedicated network possible for this process, because this will help you on the process of moving the virtual machine and of the copying and the conversion. And after that, what the machine converter does, it will validate the disk. We'll see if the disk will have all the information. Everything is okay. If everything is okay, if we have Hyper-V, it's done. You don't need to do anything. If you are migrating to Azure, you have then you have the fifth step is copying the VHD to the final location. So that is the 5A. If you want to migrate to Azure, you will use exactly the fifth step to copy them to the Microsoft Azure storage account. And then you have all the VMs there. So there are a lot of recommendations regarding this, because you know that Azure have a certain of VM roles. So you have from A0 VM to A8 or A9, something like that. And you have different usage of the VMware, on this case, on the VM roles in Azure. So right now, what I'm seeing on the clients is they are trying, if they are using Azure, they are trying to match the same capabilities of the virtual machine that they have on Azure within sites. By saying that is, usually what I recommend for Hyper-V, if I only have Hyper-V or VMware, it doesn't matter. I recommend like one CPU for 4 gigs of memory. So this is my gold formula. And from them, I create several templates, hardware templates regarding that formula. So that is the lowest you can get, for example. If you want to have the highest, you can have 8 CPUs and 32 gigs of memory, or 64 gigs of memory. Of course, that this is only an example that I always give to my customers, but you can always change it, because sometimes you need only 4 CPUs and 16 gigs or 24 gigs of memory, and you are behind that formula. So, but that formula doesn't work for Microsoft Azure, because usually it's one CPU for 768 megs of memory. So that is, I think, is A0. The A1 is 2 CPUs and 1.5 gigs, and so on, so on, so on. So if you want to really change or really migrate the VMs, you need to be careful with that. Because if you have like a 4 CPU and 24 gigs of memory, you will not find that on Azure. And you cannot create your hardware specs that you have the same possibility in your inside. So be careful with that. So now I'm seeing all the customers trying to just update those servers, okay? So then the best part of this is automating. So automate this, because it's PowerShell, it's really simple, okay? So the migration automation toolkit, it's really simple. It's another free solution, okay? Then you can use the virtual machine converter on the full power, okay? And I will give you an example on the next slide. So you can attach this to a SQL. Basically, what it does, it's giving all the jobs, and it's starting to just migrate a VM each time. And then when it's finished, starting the other one. So this is the automating process. Because the converter by himself, you can only do once each time. Okay? So you can only run one each time. So if you want to really automate this process, and if you want to really have a couple of hundreds or thousands VMs that you want to migrate, it's starting to be a very manual and an expensive process. So this one is the way that you can do. And with that, we can support multimos converged at the same time with PowerShell. So that is a good thing. You say it will depend on your resource that you have, of course, that you can have support multiple VMs. So you can have like a group of the VMs. My recommendation don't go above 10 on each block, because then it's starting to, depending on when you want to migrate, if it's to Azure, it's probably not a very good idea, because then you are consuming all the upload link, and it will take more time. But if you are moving to Hyper-V, the good thing is you can use that bandwidth. It depends on the bandwidth. So I do not recommend more than 10, because then you see that it's eating hard on your server. So the way that works, it's very similar. So you have the mat control machine, in this case, with SQL. Basically, the first step it does, it collects every single information from VMware. So the lists of virtual machines, all the properties of each virtual machine, and stores on database. Okay? So that is the first step. The second step is use the user order list. So after using that, I can set up the order lists. So remember the block of 10. So I can say, okay, I want this 10 first, this 10 after, this 10 after, and so on, so on, so on. So you set up the order that you want to migrate. Okay? After that, you starting the conversion. And this is the two extra steps that you have behind or besides the virtual machine converter. Okay? It's the collect and the order. After that, is starting the magic. And the fourth step, you can scale. So you can have helper machines to just do the conversion if you want. So regarding this, it's an awesome way if you have 1,000 virtual machines. One of my best recommendations for you is set up a 3 or 4 nodes cluster only to do this. Only to this. You will see the improvement of having those thousands virtual machines migrating from VMware to Hyper-V in a matter of very short time. Okay? And there are a tool that you can even use this with NetApp. If you have NetApp, if you are lucky enough to have NetApp, you will see that the shift that they have, shift format, that is using this tool, it's really fast. Because the way that they are copying or converting, it's not coming to Hyper-V, it's going directly on the storage side. So the speed of that is really, really fast. It's a matter of, sometimes a matter of seconds or minutes to just migrate one virtual machine to Hyper-V. Okay? So it's really cool. So they just send me with the time. I'm on the last one. So on the summary, Hyper-V is growing quarter on quarter. That is a reality. Okay? The number of options exists for migration, but MVC, MVMC, sorry, it's really the only one that gives you 100% and can be customizable and automated. Okay? The full power of automation with PowerShell. If you are familiar with System Center Orchestrator, SCO, you can even go further. So it's what I'm using. Remember that steps that I say that I will add the local admin on inside of the virtual machine or even the Linux one? What I'm doing is I have the run books that do that with that. With virtual machine converter, I have everything. So if you want, I'm more than welcome to send to you those run books. And it's very simple. Okay. If you were here on the previous session when we deploy bare metal deployment on 3-node cluster, do you remember the session that we had, or the PowerShell that we had for building the cluster? Is exactly that complicated. So it takes tons of time to understand. It's a really a 4 or 5 step process on the run book that does everything for you. The only thing you have to do is saying what VMs you want to do it. Okay, nothing else. Even if you don't want to say, you only give the option, say, I want to do a bulk of 10, 5, 20. Just put that on the file, and what the run book does, it will see that, grab the file, and it will process for you. And the cool thing is, at the end, you can be drinking beer while they are doing this, and you receive a nice email say, hey, my job is done. You can sleep now. So it's really awesome. So physical to virtual, it will return on the VMC 3.0. Okay, so this is the 2.0 in the fall. So probably it will come. That is the Microsoft timeline. So I don't know where. It's the only information that I have right now. But on the fall, we are on the fall right now. So it's very soon, and you can have the physical to virtual conversion. Okay. So without this, any questions? No? So without this, we want to thank our sponsors. And again, hashtag if you really want to the Surface Pro. And remember to do, again, it's the wrong slide, it's okay. Remember to do, again, the evaluation. Okay? Thank you very much.